The air was thick with tension as Sergio led his team through the dense brush of the Mexican countryside, the oppressive heat of the afternoon sun weighing heavily on their shoulders. The mission had been clear: locate and neutralize a cartel stronghold that had been terrorizing local communities. But as they advanced, an uneasy feeling settled in the pit of Sergio's stomach. He had seen too many operations go sideways. The ghosts of those missions lingered like shadows in his mind. "Stay sharp, team," he called over his shoulder, his voice steady but laced with an underlying tension. Ana, the team's fierce medic, nodded, her eyes scanning the surrounding trees for any signs of movement. Luis, the youngest of the group, walked closely behind her, his brow knitted in concentration as he clutched his rifle tightly. Suddenly, the serenity of the moment shattered. Gunfire erupted from the underbrush, bullets whizzing past them like angry hornets. "Ambush!" Sergio shouted, instinctively diving for cover behind a nearby tree. The chaos unfolded in a blur. Cries of surprise mixed with the sharp reports of gunfire echoed through the air, creating a cacophony of fear and adrenaline. Ana pushed her way forward, her training kicking in despite the panic swirling around her. "We need to regroup," she yelled, trying to make herself heard over the din. She spotted a wounded soldier, Marco, sprawled on the ground, blood seeping from a wound in his leg. "Sergio, I need help here." Sergio's heart raced as he maneuvered back toward Ana, taking aim at a silhouette darting between the trees. "Cover me," he barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. As he fired a few rounds, he felt the weight of responsibility crash down on him. He couldn't afford to lose another man. Luis, still processing the shock of the ambush, caught sight of Marco's pale face. "What do I do?" he shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "Stay low and keep firing," Sergio commanded, his eyes locked onto the enemy positions. He could see the cartel members now, their faces obscured by masks, but their intentions were clear. They were there to kill. Ana knelt beside Marco, her hands shaking as she applied pressure to the wound. "Stay with me, Marco. You'll be okay." But even as she spoke, her mind raced with fears of her own. The sound of gunfire stirred up memories she had tried to bury, images of past missions where she had been unable to save her comrades. Would this be another failure? "Keep your head down, Ana," Sergio yelled, pulling her back to the present. The firefight raged on, each moment stretching into eternity. Bullets ricocheted off nearby trees, and the acrid smell of gunpowder hung in the air. As the chaos began to settle, the remaining cartel members retreated, leaving the soldiers shaken and panting for breath. The forest that had moments before felt alive now felt like a tomb, the echoes of gunfire fading into an unsettling silence. "Is everyone okay?" Sergio asked, scanning the group. Ana was still kneeling by Marco, her expression a mask of determination mixed with fear. Luis stood a few feet away, his hands trembling as he lowered his weapon. "I can't believe we made it," Luis breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. "We're not out of the woods yet," Sergio replied, glancing around warily. "We need to regroup and assess our injuries." As night began to fall, the team found temporary refuge in an abandoned house nearby. The structure was dilapidated, its walls crumbling under the weight of decay. Ana rummaged through the remnants of the past, searching for anything useful to aid Marco. It was then that Luis, drawn by an inexplicable compulsion, stepped into a shadowy corner of the room. "What's that?" he murmured, bending down to pick up a blood-stained diary that lay half-buried in the dust. The leather cover was cracked, and as he opened it, the pages revealed a series of frantic scrawls that sent chills down his spine. "Luis, what did you find?" Ana asked, glancing up from her makeshift treatment of Marco. "It's a diary," he replied, his voice trembling. "It looks like it belonged to someone who lived here. There are mentions of dark things. Secrets." Sergio moved closer, peering over Luis's shoulder. "We don't have time for stories. We need to focus on Marco." "I know," But, Luis hesitated, his eyes wide with dread. These entries, they're disturbing. It talks about soldiers who came here and never left. Anna exchanged a worried glance with Sergio. The weight of the day's events hung heavy in the air, and even as they worked to save Marco, an unsettling feeling crept into their consciousness. Little did they know, the true horrors of their mission were only just beginning to unfold. As dawn broke over the eerie village, a heavy mist settled like a shroud over the dilapidated buildings, their paint peeling and windows shattered. The air was thick with an unsettling silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant call of a bird. Sergio, Anna, and Luis stood at the edge of the village, their breath visible in the cool morning air, each grappling with the weight of the blood-stained diary that had sparked this grim expedition. "Stay sharp," Sergio commanded, his voice low but firm, a veteran's authority evident in his tone. He scanned their surroundings, the familiar tension of anticipation tightening in his chest. "We don't know what we're walking into." Luis shifted uneasily, his youthful features betraying his anxiety. "What if the locals know something? What if they don't want us here?" He shoved his hands deep into the pockets of his combat pants, a nervous habit he had developed since joining the unit. Anna looked at him, her expression a mixture of concern and resolve. "We're here to uncover the truth, Luis. We can't let fear dictate our actions. We have to find out what happened to those soldiers mentioned in the diary." As they moved deeper into the village, the cobbled streets seemed to close in around them, the shadows of the buildings stretching ominously. A sense of foreboding wrapped around them, amplified by the unnatural stillness. Sergio felt a chill run down his spine, a whisper of memories from a past mission flashing before his eyes, a mission that had gone horrifically wrong. "Focus, Sergio," he muttered to himself, shaking his head as if to dispel the encroaching memories. But the images clung to him, unbidden. He remembered the screams, the chaos, and the blood. He pressed his lips together, trying to regain his composure. "Did you hear that?" Anna's voice broke through his thoughts, sharper than the crack of a rifle shot. She halted, her eyes darting toward a narrow alleyway. It sounded like someone, or something. Luis stepped closer to Anna, his posture rigid. "Maybe it's just the wind," he suggested, though his voice wavered, betraying his uncertainty. "No, it was a voice," Anna insisted, her instincts as a medic kicking in. "We should check it out." With a reluctant nod, Sergio led the way, his heart pounding in his chest as they approached the alley. The air felt charged, as if the very walls were holding their breath. As they rounded the corner, they found themselves in a small courtyard, filled with broken furniture and remnants of what had once been a vibrant life. But what drew their attention was a weathered door, slightly ajar, inviting yet foreboding. "Should we?" Luis asked, glancing back at Sergio, who contemplated the door, his gut twisting with an inexplicable sense of dread. "Yeah, we should," Sergio replied, though he felt the weight of his words. "We need to find something, anything, that connects to the diary." Pushing the door open, they entered a dimly lit room, the air stale and thick. As Anna stepped inside, her eyes widened in horror. "Oh my God, what is this?" The walls were plastered with photographs, each one depicting soldiers in various states of distress. Some had smiles, others looked haunted, but each bore a date that sent chills down their spines, dates that were alarmingly recent. Anna's fingers trembled as she reached out to touch one of the images, her breath hitching in her throat. Sergio moved closer, his heart racing as he examined the photographs. They can't be real," he whispered, unable to tear his gaze away from a face he recognized. That's Martinez. He was with us on the last mission." Luis stepped back, his skin prickling with unease. Are we next?" he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "No," Sergio said, his voice hardening. "We're not going to let that happen. We need to get to the bottom of this." But as he spoke, doubt gnawed at him, a gnawing fear that they had stumbled into something far darker than they could comprehend. Anna's eyes darted around the room, searching for answers. "This place, it feels wrong," she murmured, her voice laced with fear. "Like it's trapped in time. We need to leave, now." But as they turned to exit, the door slammed shut with a deafening bang, echoing in the silence. The three soldiers exchanged frantic glances, the weight of their situation settling heavily upon them. The photographs surrounded them, their gaze unyielding, as if the very souls of the soldiers trapped within the images were pleading for release. "Let's find another way out," Sergio urged, though the resolve in his voice was wavering. The shadows seemed to close in around them, and he could feel the line between reality and nightmare beginning to blur, a haunting echo of the past reverberating through the air. The wind howled through the dilapidated buildings of the village, carrying with it unsettling whispers that sent chills down Luis's spine. He glanced nervously over his shoulder, convinced that unseen eyes were watching their every move. The air was thick with an oppressive silence, broken only by the distant rustle of leaves and the faint echo of his heart pounding in his ears. "Can you hear that?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper as he stepped closer to Sergio and Anna, who were examining the crumbling facade of a nearby house. Sergio, his brow furrowed with concentration, shook his head dismissively. "It's just the wind, Luis. Focus on the mission. We need to find out what's going on here." "But it sounds like voices," Luis insisted, his unease growing. "Like, someone is trying to tell us something." Anna shot him a concerned glance, wiping the sweat from her brow despite the coolness of the evening. "Luis, you've been through a lot. It's easy to let your mind wander in a place like this. Just stay alert." Luis nodded, but the whispers continued, weaving through the air like intangible threads, pulling at his sanity. He could feel the weight of the village's history pressing down on him, a heavy blanket of sorrow and despair. As they moved deeper into the heart of the village, Sergio's attention was drawn to a weathered wall covered in faded graffiti. Among the scrawls, he recognized a name that sent a jolt through him: Carlos. Memories flooded back, laughter shared in the barracks, plans for the future, the day Carlos had been killed in an ambush. Sergio's breath caught in his throat. "Carlos," he murmured, almost to himself. Anna noticed his distraction and stepped closer. "You okay, Sergio?" He blinked hard, shaking his head as if to clear the fog. "Yeah, just an old friend," he said, his voice strained. "We lost a lot of good men in this war. Sometimes, it feels like they're still with us." Luis, still haunted by the whispers, interjected, "Maybe they are. Maybe the stories about this place are true." "What if, Luis?" Sergio snapped, his patience fraying. "We don't have time for ghost stories. We need to focus on the here and now." But Luis couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. The shadows seemed to lengthen as the sun dipped below the horizon, and the air grew colder. A rustle behind them made him jump, and he spun around, heart racing, only to find nothing but the empty street stretching out behind them. "Guys, let's keep moving," Anna said, her voice steady as she tried to keep the group on track. "We need to find that church. If there are answers here, that's where we'll find them." As they approached the church, an unsettling atmosphere enveloped them. Shadows danced along the walls, and the whispers crescendoed, swirling around them like a tangible force. Luis felt a shiver run down his spine, and he instinctively stepped closer to Anna. "Do you feel that?" he asked, desperation creeping into his voice. Anna nodded slowly, her eyes scanning the area. "Yeah, it's like the air is charged with something dark." Sergio, his jaw set, marched ahead, pushing open the creaking door of the church. Inside, the dim light revealed rows of empty pews and an altar draped in tattered cloth. But what caught their attention was the wall behind the altar, covered in photographs of soldiers, their faces frozen in time. Some of the photos were yellowed with age, while others were startlingly recent. "What the hell?" Luis breathed, stepping closer to the wall. He recognized some of the faces, men he had trained with, soldiers who had been sent to fight in the same battles he had. Why are they here? Sergio grimaced, his heart racing as he scanned the names beneath the photographs. These men, they shouldn't be here. They should be alive. Suddenly, the whispers intensified, echoing off the walls, wrapping around them like a noose. Luis's heart pounded in his chest as he felt a presence behind him. He turned, and for a fleeting moment, he thought he saw a figure, a soldier in faded camouflage, eyes hollow and pleading. Luis. Anna's voice cut through the haze of fear. Get away from there. But it was too late. The apparitions began to manifest, swirling around them, their faces twisted in anguish. The air grew thick with despair as the soldiers reached out, their mouths moving silently as if trying to communicate, but the words were lost in a cacophony of whispers. Get back! Sergio shouted, raising his weapon instinctively, but his hands trembled. They're not real. Are they? Luis whispered, his voice cracking as he faced the spectral figures. They looked so real. The group was frozen, caught in a liminal space between reality and nightmare, as the night descended upon the village, bringing with it a reckoning that none of them could have anticipated. The sun hung low over the village, casting long shadows that danced among the dilapidated buildings. Anna sat on a crumbling step, her mind racing as she tried to rationalize the haunting apparitions that had plagued them since their arrival. It has to be stress, she muttered under her breath, her fingers running nervously over the fabric of her uniform. We've all seen too much. Yet, even as she spoke, doubt gnawed at her. Luis, standing a few feet away, stared into the distance, his brow furrowed. The young recruit had been increasingly withdrawn, and Anna could feel his fear radiating off him like heat from a fire. I don't think it's just stress, Anna, Luis finally said, his voice low and shaky. What if those things we saw last night were real? What if we're not alone here? Sergio approached, his face set in a grim line. We need to stay focused, he said, folding his arms across his chest. Whatever we saw, we can't let it distract us from our mission. We have to find out what happened to those soldiers. Luis turned towards Sergio, his eyes wide. But what if it's a warning? What if we're meant to suffer the same fate? Sergio's expression softened slightly, but he remained resolute. We don't have the luxury of fear. We're soldiers. We face our demons head-on. As the sun dipped further, casting the village into twilight, Anna felt a chill crawl down her spine. We should move. Find shelter and regroup. The group made their way through the village, their footsteps echoing against the crumbling walls. In the gathering darkness, Luis caught sight of something glimmering in the dirt, a small cache of weapons hidden beneath the remnants of an old cart. Over here, he called out, his voice breaking the oppressive silence. The others rushed to his side, and Anna knelt down, brushing the dirt away to reveal the weapons. As she inspected them, she noticed a strange inscription etched into the metal. It says, "The price of blood," she read aloud, her heart racing. What does that mean? Luis asked, his eyes darting nervously around them. Sergio's jaw tightened. It means we're in deeper than we thought. This isn't just about drugs or cartels. There's something darker at work here. As they gathered the weapons, Anna felt a growing sense of dread. We need to find shelter before night falls completely, she urged. They moved swiftly through the village, finally spotting a small, seemingly intact building at the far end of the street. As they entered, Anna's instincts told her something was off. The air felt thick, and the shadows seemed to shift unnaturally. Inside, they huddled together, the oppressive darkness closing in around them. Sergio lit a small flashlight, casting a beam across the room. The walls were lined with old photographs, some of soldiers, others of the village over the years. Look at this, Anna said, pointing to a faded picture of a group of soldiers. They look like they're celebrating. Or maybe they're just pretending, Luis replied bitterly. What if they knew what was coming? Before anyone could respond, the door creaked open, and an elderly man stepped inside, his face lined with age and sorrow. "You shouldn't be here," he warned, his voice gravelly. "You've disturbed the spirits." Sergio stepped forward, his military training kicking in. "We're here to help. We need information about what happened to the soldiers who came before us." The elder shook his head, his eyes dark with concern. "You cannot help. The souls of the fallen are restless. They are bound to this place, waiting for retribution. You tread on cursed ground." A shiver ran through Anna as the elder's words sank in. "What do you mean?" she demanded. "The blood spilled here binds the living to the dead," he explained. "Those who died in this village cannot find peace. They seek vengeance on those who come after them." Luis paled at the elder's revelation, the weight of it hanging heavily in the air. "We're being hunted, aren't we?" The elder nodded gravely. "You must leave while you still can. The curse will take you if you stay." Sergio's expression hardened. "We can't run. We need to uncover the truth." Anna felt a surge of determination, but it was quickly overshadowed by fear. "But at what cost?" she whispered, the elder's words echoing in her mind. As the night deepened, they sat in tense silence, the weight of the elder's warning hanging over them like a dark cloud. The shadows around them seemed to pulse with a life of their own, and Anna couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, by the spirits of those who had come before them, perhaps, or by something even more sinister. The flickering light from the flashlight cast eerie shapes on the walls, and Anna felt her heart race. "We need to prepare for what's coming," she finally said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. Sergio nodded, his gaze fixed on the door. "We'll face it together," he promised, but even he couldn't hide the uncertainty in his eyes. As the darkness enveloped them, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that the true horror of their mission was only just beginning to unfold. The air felt heavier than ever as the team stood on the edge of the village, the oppressive silence broken only by the distant rustle of leaves. The weight of their shared fears hung thick among them, and the shadows of the buildings loomed like specters, whispering secrets best left untouched. Sergio, his face pale and drawn, glanced around at his comrades. The echo of distant gunfire still reverberated in his mind, but now it was accompanied by an unsettling stillness. "We need to get out of here," Anna urged, her voice steady but laced with urgency. "This place is bad news. We can't stay any longer." Luis, still shaken from their last encounter, nodded vigorously. "I don't like it here. It feels like we're being watched. We should move, now." Sergio clenched his jaw, torn between the instinct to flee and the haunting memories that clawed at his mind. "It's not that easy," he replied, his voice low. "We can't leave without understanding what's happening. We have to face this head-on." Anna stepped closer, urgency spilling from her. "Sergio, you're not thinking straight. Whatever's haunting us here, it's feeding off our fear. We need to break this cycle or it will consume us." But Sergio shook his head, unwilling to yield to the rising tide of panic. "You don't understand. There are things I've seen, things I've done, that I can't just run away from. We need to confront our pasts," but, his voice trailed off, lost in the weight of his guilt. Luis, sensing the tension, interjected, "Maybe if we retrace our steps, we can find a way out. The diary, those entries, they might lead us to the truth." With a resigned sigh, Sergio finally relented. "Fine. Let's look for clues. But we have to stay together." As they ventured deeper into the village, the landscape morphed around them. The buildings twisted and distorted, creating a nightmarish labyrinth that seemed to shift with each step. The air crackled with an unnatural energy, and shadows flitted just beyond their periphery. Every corner turned revealed something more grotesque than the last, a child's toy covered in dust, a door that creaked open to reveal nothing but darkness. "I don't like this place," Luis whispered, his wide eyes scanning the surroundings. "It's like we're walking through a bad dream." Anna felt a chill run down her spine as she recalled the elder's warning. What if it's true? What if we're trapped in our own nightmares? Sergio halted abruptly, a vision flashing before his eyes. The faces of fallen comrades tormented him, their eyes accusing, their mouths silent in the cruel grip of death. I can't keep doing this, he muttered, clutching his head as if to block out the cacophony of memories. I should have saved them. I should have. Stop it. Anna snapped, shaking him from his reverie. You're not alone in this. We're in this together. We can't let the past control us. But Sergio's gaze was unfocused, lost in a fog of guilt. You don't understand. It's not just about the past. It's about what we're doing here. It's all connected. Luis, feeling the weight of the moment, spoke softly, maybe confronting those memories is the only way we can escape. What if we face what we did? What if we own up to our mistakes? Sergio's breath hitched as he processed Luis's words. You think that will break whatever hold this place has on us? It's worth a try, Luis urged, his voice steady despite the tremor of fear beneath it. We can't keep running. We have to confront it. With a heavy heart, Sergio nodded, the decision weighing on him like a stone. Okay. Let's do this. But we need to focus. We can't let fear take control again. As they moved deeper into the eerie village, Anna felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could confront their demons and break free from the nightmarish grip that held them captive. Yet, lurking in the shadows, the spirits of their past awaited, eager to reveal the truth of their mission and the price they would have to pay. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of crimson and indigo, an oppressive weight hung in the air. The three soldiers stood in the center of the village, the echoes of their breaths mingling with the whispers of the past. The spirits of fallen soldiers surrounded them, their faces contorted in expressions of anguish and anger. Luis clenched his fists, his heart racing. I know who I am, he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil swirling around them. I'm one of them. I was here, and I will not let their suffering continue. Sergio's brow furrowed as he tried to process Luis's revelation. What do you mean? He asked, stepping closer. You can't be serious. This is madness. The weight of his own guilt clawed at him, but he couldn't allow Luis to spiral further into this abyss. But Luis's gaze was fierce, unwavering. No, Sergio. It's the truth. I've seen the faces of the men who died here, felt their pain. I'm bound to them, and I need to make this right. His voice echoed through the desolate village, a call to arms against their shared fate. Anna stepped forward, her expression resolute. If this is true, then we have to help you, help them. We can't leave this place until we confront the spirits and put them to rest. She glanced around, the shadows flickering ominously. We need to perform the ritual. It's our only chance. Sergio hesitated, the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. He had spent years fighting against the demons of his past, but now he realized that ignoring them wouldn't suffice. All right, he finally said, his voice firm. We do it together. But we need to be careful. The spirits are angry, and they won't take kindly to our interference. As they gathered the remnants of their courage, the atmosphere shifted. The air thickened with tension, and the spirits surged forward, their features twisted with rage. Luis raised his arms, and the energy around him crackled like electricity. We need to appease them. We must acknowledge their pain. In a sudden, violent clash, the spirits lunged at the soldiers, their ethereal forms colliding with the harsh reality of the living. Sergio fought back, swinging his rifle like a weapon against the intangible. Stay together, he shouted, his voice barely cutting through the cacophony of anguished cries. We can't let them tear us apart. Anna, with her medical training ingrained in her, began chanting the words she had learned from the local elder. We honor your sacrifice. We recognize your pain. We seek to bring peace. Her voice rose above the chaos, a beacon of hope amidst the darkness. But as the energy shifted, a figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, imposing man with the authority of a soldier and the menace of a commander. "You fools," he bellowed, his voice cutting through the howling winds. "This is not your fight. You were sent here to clear this village, not to meddle in things beyond your understanding." Sergio's blood ran cold. You set us up," he stammered, realization dawning. This was all a trap. The man's lips curled into a sinister smile. "Of course. You were merely pawns in a game far larger than you can comprehend. The village is haunted, yes, but it is also a liability. You were meant to cleanse it, and now you will pay the price for your ignorance." Anna's heart raced as she felt the ground tremble beneath them, the spirits responding to the threat of their former commander. "No. We won't let you do this," she yelled, rising to her feet. "You can't control us anymore." In that moment, Luis stepped forward, channeling the energy from the spirits. "You think you can use us as your weapons? We are not yours to command." He thrust his hands toward the man, and a surge of energy erupted, colliding with the embodiment of corruption. As the two forces clashed, a whirlwind of light and shadow enveloped the village, illuminating the darkness that had held it captive for so long. The soldiers fought alongside the spirits, their cries of vengeance echoing through the air, while the malevolent commander struggled against the tide of justice rising against him. In the midst of the chaos, the truth became clear: the mission had been a facade, a cruel manipulation by their own leaders. The real monsters were not just the demons of the past but those who had sent them into the lion's den without a second thought. With one final push, the combined strength of the living and the dead surged forward, breaking the chains that bound the village to its haunted past. As the dust settled, a profound silence enveloped the area. The spirits, now free, faded into the ether, their anguished faces finally at peace. Sergio, Anna, and Luis stood together, breathless and shaken, but united in their shared experience. They had faced the darkness, confronted their own demons, and emerged stronger. Yet, a lingering question remained: what would happen next, now that they had unearthed the sinister truth behind their mission?